This old world may be sleeping, but we have been dreaming of a brighter day. Some of us keeping our minds on the reason. Beautiful season is coming our way. Today could be the day. Hey, little flower, you got the power to push through green blankets. You're ready to grow. Hey there, sweet bluebird, tell me what you heard. I want to sing that great song that you know. Wake from your slumber and try to remember a time when we all were together as one. A new day is coming, yes, there will be sunshine. Wipe away teardrops, springtime will come. It's been so lonely, but that was only our chance to realize the love that we need. Come take my hand now, let's make a plan how to stay wide awake. Let's fly you and me away. Wake from your slumber and try to remember a time when we all were together as one. A new day has come, tell me you feel the sun. Wipe away teardrops, springtime has come. I'm wide awake now.
Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation founded in 1711 along with the town of Needham. We are a proud LGBTQ welcoming congregation, a climate justice and action green sanctuary, and a level 2 sanctuary supporting congregation for immigration justice. Whoever you are, whatever your background, and wherever you're watching from, we welcome you here. My name is Claire Galkowski. Since my husband Jan and I discovered First Parish in 2016, the choir has let me sing with them, and the Green Congregation Committee has enabled me to help promote our 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. I'm supported in taking action to care for our world and in inspiring others to live more lightly. It's given me joy to demonstrate our climate justice alongside our minister, staff, and fellow congregants. Back in the day of in-person social hour, I gladly joined our dedicated kitchen crew and the Friends of Social Hour in their efforts to minimize food serviceware and coffee waste. Our hospitality leaders strive to mimic nature by using its resources carefully, so our fragile planet can continue to support our existence. I look forward to mingling with you all again and not having to make my own coffee on Mondays. Although our building remains closed during the ongoing pandemic, our faith community is open. We hope all of you will plug into our Zoom gathering opportunities throughout the week, including Zoom social hour after every Sunday service. You can learn more about all that's happening at First Parish by going to our website, uuneedham.org, or by following us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. To get the Zoom links, please sign up for our weekly email newsletter by going to our website and clicking Get Involved Newsletter. You can also send your request to office@uuneedham.org. Our sincere hope is that these online services and connection opportunities will help us keep the physical distance required during this pandemic without losing much of the spiritual, emotional, and social closeness that we treasure in our faith community. If you're watching this service as it live streams, please take a moment now to say hello and introduce yourself in the chat box. Welcome again to everyone, and good morning.
Let us begin by offering greetings to the seven directions, acknowledging the world in which we live. We turn to the east, where the sun rises. We turn to the south for its warmth and energy. We turn to the west. That is where wisdom lies. We turn to the north to honor our ancestors. We turn to the earth and bless her always. We reach before the sky for all the gifts that He brings us. Pray for the spirit that is within each of us. And we acknowledge this land, which is Lenape land, the ancestors who are still with us and have always been. May their wisdom teach us that what we do impacts the seventh generation to come, so that they may again grow strong and lead us to wisdom. And now we will light the chalice. Chalice is, of course, a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, which looks to embrace the eighth principle. Principle that recognizes diversity, multiculturalism, and asks us to seek out ways to end white supremacy. We honor all of the elements of the earth, the water from the spring, the feathers from the bird of the air, indicating air flow. We have soil. We have fire. We need all of these to live. Aho.
Our opening hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth, is purportedly the only song that's published in every one of our hymnals of our faith tradition. Please join in singing from home, For the Beauty of the Earth.
Over and the
Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Though we cannot gather in person at this time, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me from home the words of our parish covenant as shown on your screen. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Elizabeth Mount, and I'm here to tell you about the sweet story of a honeybee. So on a bright and beautiful day in the land of Might Have Been, where the land sings and the animals talk just as plain as you and me, a young honeybee was just waking up from their sleep. Now this honeybee was a drone. As you might know already, there are in a honeybee hive just one queen of the hive, several consorts of the queen, and many, many drones who are the workers of the hive. Well, this young drone, appropriately named Beatrice, had just grown up enough to take their first flight out of the hive to begin harvesting the nectar and the pollen that bees need in order to feed themselves and make honey to store for their winter food. Beatrice was so excited about their first flight and just buzzed off to begin gathering nectar, coming back as fast as they could fly with a full tiny basket of pollen and all the nectar it was possible to carry. Again and again, Beatrice zipped off to fill up and zoomed back like the tiniest little superhero, just swooshing and swishing through the air. By mid-afternoon, Beatrice was very tired from all of this zipping and zooming about, and not a little cranky, too. It had only been one day, but bees don't live very long. And, well, Beatrice was concerned at how small the pile of pollen was, how very little nectar she seemed to have gathered for the hive. Beatrice stopped to rest for a moment near an elder drone by the name of Abigail. One drop, and not even a big drop, Beatrice pouted. Yes, one small sweet drop, Abigail replied, but in a much different tone of voice. Yes, it looks small, and in your entire life, you'll probably gather no more than enough nectar for 1/12 of 1 teaspoon of honey. Then why even bother? Asked Beatrice. It doesn't seem like I make much of any difference at all. Well, said Abigail, if we all gave up, then what would happen? Well, I guess there wouldn't be any more honey or pollen, and then the queen would stop having babies, and the young would stop being fed, and the colony might die off. That's right, said Abigail. You only make a small bit of honey, but that small amount, and my small amount, and all of our drone comrades together, we make as much as 6 or 10 gallons of honey every year. So much that without tending from a beekeeper, we could fill up a hollow tree or a vacant hive, and we'd have to move on every couple of seasons. It turns out that everyone's small effort is the only way to sweet success for this hive and for all honeybees. Wow, said Beatrice. I guess I'd better get back to doing my part. Well, said Abigail, that's not quite right either. Rest for a moment and gather yourself. Make sure you're fed and well before you go back out there. You see, everyone's effort is necessary, but it also matters that you're well nourished and sustained, and that you have fun. Don't just gather the pollen as fast as you can. Stop to smell the flowers too. You'll be happier, and the whole hive will benefit from it, because you'll be part of a whole community that's healthy and well. Oh, said Beatrice, but don't we need to get as much honey as possible for the winter? Abigail paused a moment, because this was a tender lesson to impart. The answer is yes and, really, said Abigail. The truth is that honeybees only live for a few weeks, and neither you nor I will perhaps ever see the winter time. But what we gather and how we choose to be in this time, that will leave a legacy for the future, and we'll teach the bees who come after us how to be a bee. And with that, Beatrice understood, and Bee and Abby shared a tiny cup of tea, sweetened with an even tinier drop of honey. And they watched the wind and the sunshine play over the flowers before going back to work, a bit wiser and better for their conversation. I hope this story makes you feel a little wiser and better and more ready to be a part of your community of resilience. Blessed be.
It is now time to share with one another our joys and concerns from the past week. These joys and concerns were submitted to me at internminister@uuneedham.org by the Thursday before the service at midnight. If you did not submit a candle but would like to share with the community this morning, you are invited to enter your message into the chat box on either Zoom or YouTube. As our services live stream to YouTube, we cannot guarantee that your joys, concerns, sorrows, or milestones will stay within the First Parish community, but you are always welcome to reach out to Reverend Katie, myself, or the Pastoral Care Associate of the Week, which this week is Judy Hadrick, for pastoral care or to share more privately. If you're missing hearing each other's voices during this beloved ritual, may this also serve as a reminder to reach out to one another after the service. May this beloved community be sustained by your creativity and care for one another during this time. Our first candle this morning is a candle of concern from Laura Brown. My friend Donna's sister, Marianne, was not able to come to their brother Fred's wake on Thursday evening because she is sick with COVID-19. And they both recently lost their brother Fred. Fortunately, their mom, Natalie, seems to be doing okay. Please keep them all in your hearts. Our next candle is a candle of concern and advocacy from the First Parish staff. Just hours after crowds in Minneapolis celebrated the conviction of Derek Chauvin and the murder of George Floyd, a protest erupted in Columbus, Ohio, after a police officer shot and killed Black 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. This juxtaposition between the Chauvin verdict and the killing of Ma'Khia Bryant shows all too well that the work lies ahead of us and the need for systemic change in our civil institutions like law enforcement. And we light a final candle of sorrow for the trauma relived for so many Americans of color over the 3 weeks of the Derek Chauvin trial. For all the joys and sorrows that we still hold in our hearts, and in acknowledging the prayers of our neighbors near and far, we light one final candle. May the peace in this sanctuary be felt too in each of your homes as we remember that even though apart, we are still deeply connected. Amen. And now please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Our prayer this morning is adapted from Black UU minister and former UUA president, Reverend Bill Sinkford, for Earth Day. Spirit of life and of love, dear God, we come first to confess. Our comforts, our wasteful ways have been purchased at a huge price. We thought Earth was here for us to use in any way we wished. The language of dominion over Earth led us astray. We are a part of the interconnected web of existence, not apart from it. We are born of Earth and supported by her bounty. We thought she could recover always, never be depleted, forgive even our most violent attacks. Our violation of Earth has amounted to matricide. By insisting that the poor and people of color bear the greatest human cost, we have been committing by our headlong rush to use up Earth until she is spent, we have been committing suicide. Dear Mother, we are beginning to see what we have done. We promise to do everything in our power to bring the violation to an end. We pray that we will have the wisdom and the will to do this well. We pray we are not too late. That we have the imagination, the will, and the spirit to heal our Earth community, to sustain you as you have sustained us. As new winds of hope sweep across the land, let us rise in body or spirit to embrace them. And please join us in singing from home our meditative hymn this morning, The Lone Wild Bird. The lyrics and music will appear on your screens.
This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. This is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of this church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world we envision. For the month of April, we're sharing our collection 50-50 with the Needham Community Farm. The Needham Community Farm is a nonprofit right here in town that educates people on sustainable living, helps volunteers get back in touch with the earth, and supplies fresh, seasonal produce to the Needham Community Council Food Pantry and Needham Housing Authority sites. Thanks to the new Needham Community Farm High Tunnel, the farm has been able to increase production during the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent economic crisis and rise in food insecurity. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of three methods. You can use our Text to Give program through the number 73256 with the exact wording of UU Needham space plate or Pledge 21 space $ and the amount you want to give. You can mail a check to First Parish at 23 Dedham Avenue. Or you can make a donation through our website, uuneedham.org. and select Donate Now under the Giving box. Whichever way, remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the plate collection or for your annual pledge. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and the vital work of our community partners. Please take these next few moments to give what you can and know that it will be gratefully received. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of three methods. You can use our Text to Give program through the number 73256 with the exact wording of UU Needham space plate or Pledge 21 space $ and the amount you want to give. You can mail a check to First Parish at 23 Dedham Avenue. Or you can make a donation through our website, uuneedham.org. and select Donate Now under the Giving box. Whichever way, remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the plate collection or for your annual pledge. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and the vital work of our community partners. Please take these next few moments to give what you can and know that it will be gratefully received.
They paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They took all trees and put them in a tree museum, and they charged the people $1.50 just to see them. No, 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 don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Hey farmer, farmer, put away the DDT now. Give me spots on my apples, but leave me the birds and the bees, please. Oh, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Late last night, I heard the screen door slam, and a big yellow taxi took away my whole man. Oh no, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. I said, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. They paved paradise, put up a parking lot.
Good morning on this beautiful Earth Day Sunday. This is a bit about my religious wanderings. I began my religious life as a wandering Aramean. I was raised as a Roman Catholic, became a pantheist in college, and had a hefty dose of existentialism here and in high school. I converted to Judaism through formal ceremonies and procedures in 1979. I practiced Judaism as a ger, or convert, for 2 decades, raising 2 sons within its values. I struggled to make peace with it, considering myself, my world, my science, how I was growing. I studied Buddhism. I became an atheist with Buddhist and mystical sensibilities. Culturally, I still feel myself a Jew, but Unitarian Universalism is my destination. So why that path? Where's the unity? And what's Unitarian Universalism got to do with it? There was a 16th century Jewish rabbi and mystic, Isaac Luria, who lived in Syria and Egypt. Known to his students as the Ari, he was a major force, founder of a school of Jewish mysticism now called Lurianic Kabbalah. He told his story. When the universe was created by the source of all worlds, that act of beginning had unintended consequences. Quoting from Euro-American Rav Zvi Freeman's account, the Uri saw that while there was wisdom here, it is wisdom gone mad. There is beauty, magnificent beauty, but she is shattered. If all the world is an epic novel, the words have been tossed in the air and scrambled. If it is a grand symphony, the musicians have lost sight of their conductor, each playing his melody on his own time, as though an explosion has occurred, blowing apart the pieces that were meant to create a harmonious world, creating instead a cacophony of melodies, a chaos of fragments. So the Ari thought creation included an engineering mistake. The source, the Shekhinah, failed to understand her own force. She did not anticipate what coupling an infinite mind to a finite essence might do. Luria concluded creation was an explosion. Accordingly, every bit of all that is contains a spark of the wise, the beautiful, the harmonious, the good, a bit of Shekhinah. Our purpose is to recognize these sparks, improve ourselves meditating upon and comprehending them. But then beyond that, our collective obligation, that of all sentient beings, is to improve the cosmic order. There are 2 parts to this project, one described as Birur and the other Tikkun. Birur is selecting the good from the bad. That's a familiar theme in Judaism, echoed at the conclusion of Shabbat during Havdalah, where a prayer asks wisdom to separate the sacred from the profane. Hamavdil bein kodesh lachol. But now, being a UU, an atheist, and a scientist, I can't honestly say I see anything in the world as really bad. What I see is a jumble, like a jigsaw puzzle needing assembly, a theorem needing proof. So for me, there is just tikkun, something which roughly translates as healing. People can help with healing, or they can frustrate it, introducing more chaos and dissonance. But Isaac Luria says this is tragic, for they're making their world more harmful to themselves. And that leads us to something called tikkun olam, or as I like to call it, tikkun ha'olam. That means healing the worlds. It has become the slogan of Jewish environmentalists and some others. It certainly is my slogan. Forging the climate emergency, as all of us have, is a practice of self-harm. We have benefited much from this throwing the Earth's climate into chaos. We are trying to stop it. Yet sometimes witnessing Earth is all you can do, bowing to Buddha, as Zen sages say. That's true especially now that responsibility for transition has fallen upon governments and corporations, as it must. Hey, even the Shekhinah didn't get it entirely right. Acknowledging the great debt we owe Earth is what Earth Day means to me, trying to put the pieces back together, trying to teach. Seeking the sparks in everything and everyone is how I went from religious wandering to UU, and why I roll stones up hills. My community and values with, through, and by my wonderful wife Claire is Unitarian Universalist. My meeting house is Needham. Through the sparks of Claire, Buckminster Fuller, Samwise, and others, here I am, Hineni.
Thank you, Jan. We're so blessed that your wandering has brought you to Unitarian Universalism and to First Parish in Needham. Our monthly theme this April has been evolution, and I want to share with you some thoughts on human evolution in the context of the climate crisis we now face. English Unitarian biologist and geologist Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species in 1859, based on his observations of fossils and animal life while circumnavigating the world aboard the HMS Beagle. On the Origin of Species was a groundbreaking work that claimed, accurately, that species are not fixed, but that populations evolve through natural selection of characteristics that make a species most fit for survival and reproduction in their specific ecosystems. Asian American science journalist Khair explains it this way. Natural selection can change a species in small ways, causing a population to change color or size over the course of several generations. This is called microevolution. But natural selection is also capable of much more. Given enough time and enough accumulated changes, natural selection can create entirely new species known as macroevolution. It can turn dinosaurs into birds, amphibious animals into whales, and the ancestors of apes into humans. Indeed, the last common ancestor of humanity and of our cousins, the other great apes, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos, lived 14 million years ago. All this time later, humans and chimpanzees still have over 98% identical DNA. Over the next few years or generations, our descendants might be able to observe microevolution in specific human populations stemming from the trauma of this global pandemic. But macroevolution, enormous changes within and between species, we wouldn't see that in the human species for quite a while longer. Though we often talk about ourselves as above other animals, Homo sapiens, the human species, is subject to the same rules of nature. We crowned ourselves wise people in our Latin name, but we are still just upright, bipedal animals with a large prefrontal cortex and higher than average manual dexterity. Like other animals, we still have the tendency to focus on the short-term survival of our own family units, our own tribes, however we define those terms. We see this in our struggle to consider our planetary interdependence and long-term consequences of our actions in systemic oppressions, especially of racism, xenophobia, and religious discrimination. And we see it in our societal failure to urgently address the climate crisis. We as a species cannot survive the climate crisis that may be coming, the climate crisis of our own irresponsibility and greed. We don't have enough time for a macroevolution to the worst predictions for weather weirding of much colder winters, much hotter summers, more frequent natural disasters like hurricanes and wildfires, crop and livestock collapse. Many scientists and activists have been ringing the climate emergency alarm for years, even decades, but this decade, the 2020s, is a critical juncture toward or away from climate disaster. Costa Rican diplomat and influential organizer for the Paris Climate Accords, Christiana Figueres, said last winter, "We are facing the most consequential fork in the road. If we continue as now, we are going to be irreparably going down a course of constant destruction with much human pain and biodiversity loss. Or we can choose to go in the other direction, a path of reconstruction and regeneration, and at least diminish the negative impacts of climate change to something that is manageable. But we can only choose it in this decade. This is the decade, and we are the generation." In an article by Euro-American author Jeff Goodell, Euro-American political consultant John Podesta said it in more stark terms. Climate advocates keep saying, this is it, this is it, this is it. But this really is it. If we don't amp up and accelerate the energy transformation in this decade, we're goners, really goners. Again, we humans don't have enough time for a macroevolutionary change to adapt to the climate we are creating. What we have to count on and work for is a microevolution in wisdom, a seventh-generation minded transformation and enlightenment of interconnection. We need, as Jan shared, to see the spark of the wise, the harmonious, the good in every part of our world, and to work for tikkun olam. Muskogee musician and current U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo wrote, "Our worlds are utterly interdependent. All of our decisions matter, not just to 7 generations and more of human descendants, but to the 7 or more plant descendants and animal descendants. We make sacrifices to take care of each other. To understand each other is profound beyond human words." We need a microevolution toward sacrifice for the greater good, for the entirety of our own species, for our great ape cousins, and for all living beings on this beautiful earth. For some of us, that might mean sacrificing certain conveniences and comforts, like flying less, eating a more local plant-based diet, avoiding single-use plastics and pesticides. For others of us, it might mean sacrificing some money, like paying for more energy-efficient appliances and cars and donating to eco-justice organizations. There are lots of sacrifices, replacements, and adaptations we can make in our individual lives to make a difference for the environment. And with enough pressure, we all can make big sacrifices. Honored as our Ware lecturer at our national denomination's 2020 virtual General Assembly, Jewish-Canadian author and activist Naomi Klein said, "For so long we were told that people would never accept deep change. They were too comfortable, too lazy, too selfish. And yet we have seen in this pandemic that when necessary changes are clearly explained and genuinely understood to be in the interest of protecting life and keeping the vulnerable safe, and when these changes are imposed on individuals and big businesses alike, most of us are more than willing to do our part." Those changes on big businesses are crucial. The biggest impact we all can make is to advocate for systemic change. The United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, released a report earlier this month that the global pandemic shutdown only reduced carbon emissions by about 7% in 2020. The increase in average global surface carbon dioxide was still the 5th highest since data collection began 63 years ago. It's wonderful to put solar panels on our own roofs, but we need solar and wind farms to get us to that imagined future free of fossil fuels. We need a communal microevolution away from apathy and helplessness toward collective power and collective liberation, toward a transformed society where governments and corporations and communities are all on board with how we must behave to ensure a livable planet. Queer Unitarian Universalist minister and professor Reverend Lindy Ramsden reminds us climate injustice is layered on top of centuries of colonialism and conquest, stolen land and slave labor and indigenous genocide. There are important signs of progress, but there is still a long way to go to acknowledge and honorably address the historic need for truth-telling, for reparations and healing. And now is the time to go all in, to think big, to address foundational issues. Massive public and private resources must be mobilized. It is so important to leverage this moment and this time of gathering momentum to advance equity, to create climate justice. It is the time now, and what a time to be alive. We are being called into intergenerational solidarity to link generation to generation to generation. We must all rise together so that we may answer this calling with love. I often close my sermons and homilies with profound words from prophets, preachers, and poets, but in this virtual era, I can offer you the gift of hearing these concluding words delivered by the poet herself. Our current U.S. Youth Poet Laureate, Amanda Gorman, will have the final word today.
On Christmas Eve, 1968, astronaut Bill Anders snapped a photo of the Earth as Apollo 8 orbited the moon. Those three guys were surprised to see from their eyes what a planet looked like an Earth-wise, a blue orb hovering over the moon's gray horizon with deep oceans and silver skies. It was our world's first glance at itself, our first chance to see a shared reality, a declared stance, and a commonality, a glimpse into our planet's mirror. And as threats drew nearer, our own urgency became clearer as we realized that we hold nothing dearer than this floating body we all call home. We've known that we're caught in the throes of climactic changes some say will just go away, while some simply pray to survive another day. For it is the obscure, the oppressed, the poor who, when the disaster is declared done, still suffer more than anyone. Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not to wait. So I tell you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality where, despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marvel, this little true marvel, to master the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give next generations the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. So, Earth, pale blue dots, we will fail you not, just as we chose to go to the moon. We know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. We do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn we carry the weight of the fates of this celestial body orbiting a star, and as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an Earthrise. To see it, close your eyes, visualize that all of us in this room and outside of these walls or in these halls, all of us change makers, or in a spacecraft floating like a silver raft in space, and we see the face of a planet anew. We relish the view, we witness its round green and brilliant blue, which inspires us to ask deeply, wholly, what can we do? Open your eyes, know the future of this wise planet is right in sight, right in all of us. Trust this earth uprising, all of us bring light to exciting solutions never tried before, for it is our hope that implores us at our uncompromising core to keep rising up for an earth more than worth fighting for.
There is always a light when we are ready to see it. There is always a light when we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will. There's always a light in the dark. We are ready to see it. There's always a light in the dark. When we are ready to be it, to see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will.
There is always
a light. When we are ready to see it, there's always a light. When we are ready to be it, to see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will.
There is always
a light. There is always a light. When we are ready to see it, there is always a light. There is always a light. Now are you ready to be it? To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will. May the light.
There is always light. There is always light. There is always light.
Be the light.
Please remember that you are welcome to join into our Zoom social hour just after this service has ended. Keep a careful eye out for emails and social media posts from First Parish so you can keep up with opportunities for connection for all ages throughout this week during these times of physical isolation. You can sign up for our weekly email by clicking on subscribe to newsletter on our website, uuneedham.org. Please remember, if you fall ill or need any pastoral support, to reach out to me, Jenna Crawford, and our amazing pastoral care and caring crew teams via phone or email. We also encourage all of you strongly to check in with your friends at First Parish and to double-check your own contact information in our online Realm directory if you have not done so recently. Please email our office administrator, Susanna Whitman, if you have any questions about using our online directory. We always extinguish our chalice with words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again, no matter how long it is until we are together again. As we extinguish our chalice today, please join me from home in saying these words written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Elizabeth Sally Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing hymn this morning, "The Tide is Rising," is a song that has spread widely in the climate movement, from state houses to houses of worship, and from the U.S. to Brazil, France, and Peru. Rabbi Shoshana Mayera Friedman, a local rabbi in Brookline, writes, "In 2015, I was invited to sing at the National Cathedral at a historic service that brought together faith leaders to speak about climate change. I didn't know any song that said quite what I wanted to say, so my husband, Yotam Schechter, and I wrote Tide one evening. The tune was inspired by a banner I saw that summer which read, 'The seas are rising, so are we.' Please join us in singing from home our closing hymn this morning, 'The Tide is Rising.'"
Is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are
All living substance, all substance of energy, being, and purpose are united and share the same destiny.
All people, those we love and those we know not of, are united and share the same destiny.
Birth to death, we share this unity with the sun, earth,
Our brothers and sisters, strangers.
flowers of the field, snowflakes, volcanoes, and moonbeams.
Birth, life, death, unknown, known, unknown.
Our destiny, from unknown to unknown.
May we have the faith to accept this mystery and build upon its everlasting truth. Amen, Amin, Akshay. Go in peace.